Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the SportzMoose Media Podcast for the week. Ricky Dean, along with Rick Burkett, who is on the phone line from beautiful Mobile, Alabama. Rick's over there, and I'm here in kind of the Uri Jetto Metroplex, as I like to refer to it, the home, the place where we've never met a Family Dollar we didn't like. So that's kind of like the Uri Mall. You know, if we go to Family Dollar, as a matter of fact, I just came back from the mall, except I went right next door. Instead of going to Family Dollar, I went to the other one. What's the yellow store? I can't.
Dollar General.
Yeah, there you go, Dollar General. I couldn't remember Dollar General, but yeah, I mean, we got them right there side by side. We got the old Family Dollar, Dollar Tree double feature right there going, and then we've got the Dollar General right next door. So I had to go to Dollar General and
well, it's nice to see capitalism in full effect in the greater Jetto Uri Metroplex.
I mean, hey, it's like I say, we done got city eyes now out here. I mean, we got all kind of stuff going on. I mean, people actually staying up all the way till 10 o'clock. And, it's not what it used to be. Anyway, welcome to everybody as you jump on board with us tonight. Of course, Rick and I we're trying to wrap up things as far as high school football goes, and we had a great week of football games last week, getting underway Wednesday night with the 7A state championship game in the Alabama High School Athletic Association, a game that pitted the Thompson Warriors up against Central Phoenix City. Of course, Central Phoenix City coming out victorious in that one. Anyway, we'll get to that game later. We're going to kind of go in order, not necessarily in the order that they were played, but we're going to go 1A through 7A and talk about last week's games and what we saw in watching them and paying attention to the games. You know, we've kind of been doing this football thing all the way since August, and we got here to the final week, and all, you know, we've crowned 7 state champions in the Alabama High School Athletic Association. So everybody's got their, as they referred to them, the blue maps. They've got those back home, and you know, some of the games, Rick, turned out kind of the way we expected, and then there were some surprises, and we'll get to all those as we go through these games. But I know you got to enjoy the games, and we're going to talk about them now, and we'll just jump in here with the first one that we'll kind of lead into, which actually was one of the games that turned out the way I expected, and I believe it was the way you expected too. It was Leroy and Coosa Christian in the 1A game. Leroy coming out victorious by a score of 28-21.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't guess, like, you know, sort of like we said, you know, the last couple of weeks, once you make it to the quarterfinals and the semifinals, there's not any real huge upsets. I mean, all the teams have proven their mettle just by making it to those points. But Leroy beat such a good Elba team the week before. I mean, so I guess what I'm trying to say is the Coosa Christian gave Leroy a much better game, and I know you saw it than we might have been expecting. But congratulations to Leroy anyhow. That's who we were pulling for there from our neck of the woods.
Yeah, I mean, Leroy played good, but I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, Coosa Christian, to me, was a little bit of a surprise in the game as I got a chance to see it televised and watched it on TV. You know, Coosa Christian came into the ball game, and they were like 9-5 on the year. And, you know, they scored a lot of points. They put up a lot of points on on offense, and they had a very good defense. Their region record in their region was only 3-3. And of course, I mean, Leroy had just blown through everybody all year long with a record of 13-0 going into the state championship game, 6-0 in their region, and Coosa Christian really was a surprise as Leroy was able to pull out a tough victory, 28-21. But you know, my hats go off to Coosa Christian as they played very well, and of course, you know, no need to hang your head about getting beat by a 14-0 team, as that's what Leroy ended up. I mean, Leroy put some points up on the year as well. You know, they ended up scoring, I think, 523 points is what it has here on the year, only giving up 158. And they ended the year up 14-0. So they had a very good football team, did Leroy, and they looked good on the field, played good on the field. They had a strong running game. They didn't throw the ball an incredible amount, which most teams in 1A football, they don't throw the ball very much. They're more run. They have a tendency to be more run oriented, and Leroy was, but they did just enough of both of it, of run and pass, that they kept the defense of Coosa Christian honest, and that's what allowed Leroy to move the ball down the field and score the way they did.
Man, congratulations, Leroy. This is being called one of their best teams ever in their proud history. I think this is their 8th state championship, and they're like their 36th or 37th playoff appearance. So congratulations, Leroy Bears.
Well, Leroy's from, they're not from far away from me up here in Monroe County, right over in Clark County. And so Leroy, hats off to them. They played very well. We're glad that they won the state championship. I'll get to see all those Leroy folks, once the Christmas season is over with and we get started into high school softball. Of course, I'm still an Alabama High School Association softball official, so I'll get to see them during softball season. Always good folks from over there at Leroy, and I enjoy umpiring their softball games during the spring.
Yeah, mighty fine folks.
They are fine folks. And as we get into the next game, that really, the two teams in the Class 2A championship, this game really turned out the way I expected, because and I think with you as well, because we had talked a little bit about Fife, and we knew Fife was going to be a handful for anybody. Of course, both of these teams were very good, both Fife and Reeltown, and of course Fife, the Red Devils, they just have a winning tradition. I mean, that goes back just years and years. Both teams were very good. They ended their seasons, Fife did, 14-1 on the year. Reeltown ended their season 13-1 on the year. So they were both had a bunch of wins that they had gone through to get to where they were in the state championship game. But Fife just a little too much for Reeltown, as they picked up a win as the visitor in that ball game. It was 5-43 and Reeltown 24.
Yeah, and Reeltown had a very good team this year. They were undefeated, 13-0 heading into the game. The Rebels were, and they've got a lot of. Reeltown, like you said in last week's podcast. Everybody's heard of Reeltown that keeps up with high school football, but same is said for the Fife Red Devils. I think this is their 7th state championship or something like that, and. They finish up 14-1, having only lost one game all year. So congratulations to the Red Devils.
Yeah, well, and one thing that kind of gave me a clue that Reeltown was a good football team is in the semifinals, before advancing to the state championship game, the Reeltown team knocked off B.B. Comer. And we had been hearing about B.B. Comer all year long. B.B. Comer was the number 1 team in Class 2A quite a few weeks in a row during the regular season. And so you knew that when Reeltown knocked off B.B. Comer, and they did so by a score of 31-28, just by a field goal. So it was a very close game. But you knew when Reeltown won that game that Reeltown, they had them a football team there, and they were going to give Fife all they could handle. Of course, Fife just ended up pulling away. Fife scored 28 points by halftime. It was 28-12 at the half, and then Fife was just able to hold on, and the final score, as I said, ended up 43-24. So congratulations to Fife, and they're just a good football team, and they've been a good football team for years, and nothing's to say that going into next year they're going to be one of your favorites to make it to Auburn next. Well, actually, no, it's not going to be in Auburn. They made that announcement the other night. the state championship games next year get away from Tuscaloosa and Auburn, and they'll be played in Birmingham next year.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're going to play. I believe that's the new football stadium there that UAB uses as their field is going to be where they will play the state championship. Next
it's
year.
their new stadium, a fairly new stadium where the Birmingham Bowl is played, and kind of reminds you of Troy Stadium a little bit. But a very nice stadium where South Alabama is along those lines. But a very, very nice venue for football.
Well, like I said, a good ball game there. Congratulations to both teams for making it to the state championship game. Fife and Reeltown. Fife comes out on top by a score of 43-21. Now, an area that we know a little bit of something about because we followed 3A football all year long, and this was we made this call the second week of the season when we got a chance to see Coach Ronnie Cottrell's Mobile Christian team, the Leopards. When we got to see them against W.S. Neal, you and I both looked at each other and said, state championships coming to Mobile, and it came to pass as the Mobile Christian Leopards end up being 15-0 on the year, and they defeated Madison Academy, who is a traditional powerhouse in Class 3A, but Mobile Christian just too much for them. And actually, I think this game had the most wide margin of victory of all the state championship games, as Mobile Christian got on Madison Academy by a final score of 55-28.
Yeah, that Mobile Christian team, we said throughout the year, and cover them ourselves for at least one game, and indirectly because they're in the region that we cover for 3A, and we both know the coaches over there, and just a lot of connection to Mobile Christian, and so that wasn't a huge surprise, and congratulations to them, their first AA championship. They've won some state championship in the AISA, but not in the Alabama High School Athletic Association. So, congratulations to the Leopards.
Yeah, that was a big win for them, and of course we're proud of them, and proud for Coach Ronnie Cottrell. I've told this story before, and I'll go ahead and throw it out there, right now while we're sitting here talking about Coach Cottrell. Some years ago when I was a young guy and was planning on going into coaching myself, I was in school at when Alabama Southern Community College, or actually now it's Coastal Alabama is what it's called now, Coastal Alabama, and it was Jeff Davis back then. Remember when we got out of high school, we went to Jeff Davis Community College or junior college over in Bruton, Alabama, and I remember being over there, and I was in one of Coach Floyd Adams' classes there, and Coach Adams saw me after class one night, one morning, and he said, "Hey, you need to go by Flomaton High School on your way home and see Coach Ronnie Cottrell." Said he's looking for somebody to help with his football team over there at Flomaton. And of course, at the time, I was coaching junior high ball with Coach Bob Zarn in Atmore. I was helping with Coach Zarn there in Atmore. And so here I am, a young guy planning on going into coaching and everything, and I stopped by Coach Cottrell's office there at Flomaton, and he takes me inside and talks to me a little bit, and they weren't sure whether they were going to be able to pay me anything, but he said, "We'll try to do a little something for you and keep you in some gas money and maybe buy you a hamburger every now and then." And I said, "Well, that's okay." And so that's just the way things were, and as I left there, after talking to him, he said, "Hey, we'll give you an opportunity maybe to coach a little bit on our offensive side of the ball. You can handle wide receivers or whatever." And I didn't know much about wide receivers, but I wanted to learn, but then after I left Flomaton, I got to thinking about everything, and I said, here I am, I'm already coaching junior high football in Atmore, where can you go from Flomaton, Alabama? And to my surprise, about 2 years after Coach Cottrell and I had that conversation, I think he was at Florida State. So he showed me where you could go from Flomaton, Alabama. And anyway, I never made it too much further out of Atmore than what I did right there. But that was one of those things that I wake up some mornings and I go, Rick, you probably should have made a different decision than the one you made that day after you left Flomaton.
Well, that's a good story, and you've done all right for yourself anyhow. So, and you know, Coach Cockrell's a good guy. Just like we said, you know, about Coach Fountain, I'd be perfectly comfortable with and would want my kids. Of course, all my kids are now if they were playing to play for him because he builds character. He's a good Christian man, and it's, you know, they're not called Mobile Christian for nothing. I mean, they're a Christian school, so. Congratulations to him.
No doubt. Congratulations to Coach Cottrell and the Leopards of Mobile Christian as they come out on top. They win a state championship, 15-0 on the year. That's an accomplishment within itself, whether you get the big trophy or not. But, you know, winning 15 games in a row at any level. And the team that they knocked off was no slouch either, as with that loss.
Very good, yeah.
Yeah, with that loss, Madison Academy ends their season 14-1. The only loss that they had all year long was in the state championship game to the state champion Mobile Christian Leopards. So two good teams, and they'll be back again next year. They'll be something to be reckoned with next year when the season rolls back around. As we look at Class 4A now in the state of Alabama, the Alabama High School Athletic Association, of course, these games, all these championship games were part of the Super 7 state championship games held up in Tuscaloosa, Alabama at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Pitted Catholic of Montgomery, which was basically your South region winner, your southern part of the state winner against Cherokee County, who's up north, and of course this game was kind of lopsided. Catholic of Montgomery just really got all over Cherokee County. Really thought this game was going to turn out just a little bit better than what it was, but I tell you one thing, Catholic of Montgomery came to play a little bit of defense, and they ended up shutting out Cherokee County. Final score in this ball game was Catholic of Montgomery 35, Cherokee County nothing, in a game that just saw Catholic of Montgomery just really go up and down the field on Cherokee County. They were just too much for them.
Well, I mean, honestly, nobody gave Catholic Montgomery. I mean, their defense will go down as a legendary defense in the state from this year. They just, I mean, they start off the season shutting out McGill-Toolen here at Mobile Hill, a much larger school, 21-0, and when they shut out Booker T. Washington, that was like their ninth shutout. And then, you know, and like you just said, they turn around and shut out Cherokee County, making it their 10th shutout for the season. I mean, 10 shutouts and you know, at the 4A level that's pretty incredible. And they were playing a good team. Cherokee County just had the one loss leading into this. So, I mean, this Catholic Montgomery defense is going to go down as one of the all-time great high school defenses in the state of Alabama.
Yeah, something else that they did, if you look at their schedule too on the year, is that Catholic of Montgomery actually beat Booker T. Washington twice. The first time they played them at home back the third week of the season, beat them 56-6. And so they hung 56 on them that game, and defense played very well, only allowing 6 points. And with 56 points being on the board for their offense, you know that 6 points probably came on the second team defense that was on the field. But then when it got playoff time, they didn't score as many points against a much improved Booker T. Washington team, but they did shut them out, and they scored half of 56, and that was more than enough to advance to the state championship game.
If you play 15 games in 4A, 5A high school football, and you shut out 10 of your opponents, that's off the charts.
Yeah, you definitely have a good defense when you can do that, no doubt. And of course, you know, I mean, it just goes to show that, you know, we talked about all year long, as you get into these region games and different things like that, the cream starts floating to the top. And when you get into these later playoff rounds and stuff like that, about the third, fourth round, especially in the semifinals and all, I mean, you've got the best of the best. I mean, there's really not much difference in these two teams as they play each other, and they're working toward playing for a state championship.
That's right.
So we've seen Class 4A. So now let's look ahead at Class 5A. And of course, that's another team that we're familiar with. That's right down here on the Gulf of Mexico, the beautiful city of Gulf Shores. Gulf Shores completed their goal of becoming a state champion and also finishing their season undefeated with a 15-0 record. And of course, Gulf Shores took on Ramsey, and this was. I watched this game and watched it from beginning to end, and Coach Jack Crow was a part of the television broadcast for this ball game, and as he was for a lot of the Coach Crow, he used to coach up at Jacksonville State and everything, was the head coach up there at Jacksonville State. And Ramsey was from his neck of the woods. He was from that area there close to Birmingham where Ramsey's from. And, Coach Crow himself, he kind of had his doubts about this Gulf Shores team. But you and I, we had heard and seen this team play in different aspects all year long and knew that Gulf Shores was a very good football team. And of course, and Gulf Shores just proved to be too much to handle in a very good football game. I mean, this game went down to the wire as well, and Ramsey was working on coming back, and the final score in this ball game was 21-14, a very good game. Now one thing that Gulf Shores did is they jumped out ahead of Ramsey. They scored 21 points in the first quarter and did not score again. So the Gulf Shores defense had to play very strong and very well. And, you talk about shutouts and all. That's one thing that Gulf Shores did is their defense was off the charts. I mean, they played good defense in Gulf Shores. They had quite a few shutouts during the season, and that defense is what really brought them this state championship, holding Ramsey to 14 points in the ball game, and especially after the Gulf Shores offense jumped out 21-0 and then did not score the rest of the ball game.
Yeah, and I really regret us not even being able to cover one of their games all year long, because it's quite the story. Mark Hudspeth, who I don't know much about him, but I know that in 2020, Gulf Shores, they might have won one game, or something like that, 1-9 or 1-8 or something. Then his first year was 2021. He went 6-4, but did not make the playoffs. And last year he got beat in a close game after a good season. Got beat by Faith Academy, and I knew about that. And I just remember thinking, well, that coach he's got it going on, And then this year, they obliterated everybody on their schedule right up until this last game against a very, very good Ramsey team. So it's quite the turnaround story for Coach Hudspeth and the Gulf Shores Dolphins. And you look back through the season, look at some of the teams they beat. Man, they beat UMS Wright 17-0. They beat a very good Faith Academy team 31-16. They were really good and beat traditional powers in the playoffs. Charles Henderson 41-0. Eufaula 45-0. Both of those teams state championship traditions. Great job, Gulf Shores and Coach Hudspeth. It's just a great job overall. 15-0.
Well, and here's the thing too, Rick, and I'm going to get on a soapbox here because it's basically our show and I can, but the thing that I'm going to say, and I'm talking to basically school administrators and coaches and everything else. The schools that make it, the schools that put the product on the field that make it, your schools that go to the playoffs and win in the playoffs, they have buy-in from the communities, and they have buy-in from not only the communities outside, in the business communities in the town, but they've also sold the kids inside their schools that it is something different to be a part of a winning football team. I've seen schools, I've seen them here locally, where you could go to the school for whatever reason and look or go to a football game on Friday night, and you've got good-looking athletes that are sitting in the stands watching rather than participating on the field. And what some of these coaches need to do, and I'm going to call out the administrators, the principals and stuff. You guys walk the schools with, walk up and down the hallways with these kids. Encourage these kids to go out and play football. Because I'm going to tell you, I played football, you played football, we were involved in athletics in high school. It makes a better rounded kid that participates in these sports programs at the high school level. It cuts down on your discipline problems. It cuts down on a lot of things. It gives the kids something to do as an outlet that is positive. It's so easy for us to sit here and talk about and be negative and talk about negative things about the kids. Kids haven't changed. All right. As a matter of fact, I was having a conversation today with a gentleman, and we were talking about the way you raise kids up and everything. The way you raise them hasn't changed. Now, granted, they can get into a lot worse stuff than we ever could get into, because it just wasn't available to us. But one of the things is the way kids learn now is the way we learned then. You just bump that old noggin enough and it gets sore and you learn another way. But part of the way you gotta teach them is get them out there among good men or women, whichever the case may be, that are coaching and trying to make leaders out of them and put them in a position so that they can learn how to be leaders. And you do that by participation in your high school athletic programs. Usually the kids that are the discipline problems are the kids that are bored and don't have anything else to do. So they get into mischief. If you're too tired from running 40s after football practice to go out and get in any mischief, then you go home and you eat supper and you get up your homework and you go to bed like we always did, And did we get into our share of mischief? Sure we did, but we weren't into some of the stuff that kids are, capable of now. And a lot of it, I believe, is just because they're bored and they're not involved. And we need to encourage kids to be involved into things that have a positive influence on them and not a negative.
That's right. And when we say get them involved at, in the middle school, up through the junior high, get them involved in the youth sports. Most schools have a youth sports program now, even not all the public schools do. Most of the private schools do. And get them involved. And in a lot of cases, if you're a coach and have to be listening to this, or you're a high school administrator or whatever, and I know they know this already, they see it more than we do. But I saw it when I was coaching. Sometimes that organization and discipline and positive reinforcement, that's the only place they're going to get it for lots of these kids. They're not getting it at home sometimes. So you're doing a great service sometimes to some of these kids. And it doesn't matter if the kid comes from even a great home and a great home with discipline and whatever. It's still good to play football. It's still good to get involved in high school athletics. And to hone that competitive nature and help make them a better person no matter who they are, because the good coaches are always trying to make their kids better no matter what kind of background they came from. But you're right, in a lot of cases it's the only organization, it's the only love that some of these kids will get. They're not getting much at home, if any. And I'm not knocking anybody, but I know I love my kids that played for me, and and I know you did too. And so you're right. It might be a little bit of a soapbox we got on there though, but it's worth talking about for sure.
Well, yeah, it's worth talking about, and like I say, it's just a pet peeve of mine because I really want to, I feel like that part of my responsibility, whether I'm officiating or whether I'm doing games on the radio or even through this podcast, one of the things that we want to do, that we choose to do with our time, is to advocate for high school sports and for sports, youth sports, and everything else. That's why I spend so much time officiating, little guys baseball and girls softball and everything else that I do. It's because I love the sport, and I know what the sport means to me, and I know that it means a lot to these kids that are involved, and it just would mean more to get more and more of these kids out there because it makes them better people. and that's what we're trying to do. Is the only thing that we can really do is just as Jesus said that we needed to do, is we need to go through this world and leave it better than what we found it, and that's what we need to try to do.
And, from my perspective, if you're going to make it better, it's through Jesus. Otherwise, it's not getting any better anyhow. Sometimes that's the only time they might hear that too. And of course, you and I, and like you said, it's our podcast. We're not ashamed to say that at all. But even if it wasn't, I wouldn't be ashamed to say it.
Yeah,
so.
that is true. That is true. All right. So anyway, we've talked about the 5A game. Gulf Shores, congratulations to them as they beat a very good Ramsey team. Final score in that one was 21-14. So Gulf Shores brings home their state championship, and now we will move ahead to a team that we actually got to go see a couple of times. This game, Rick, turned out a little different than what I expected, and we had jokingly called Saraland the University of Saraland all year long. Really thought, and they did. Let me start by saying this. They had a great football team, but on this particular night, on Friday night at 7 o'clock, when this game kicked off between Saraland and Clay Chalkville, and I want to say this, if you didn't see the game on TV, I mean, you want to talk about speed on the field on both sides of the football and athletes and just incredible. I mean, I'm talking about kids that you're going to see within the next year and a half to two. You're going to see a lot of these kids that played on both Saraland and Clay Chalkville playing on Saturday at either Alabama or Auburn or somebody, very similar to those two schools. Big-time college athletes on the field. Saraland had a great team. They played great all year. They were 14-0 going into this game. Clay Chalkville was 13-0 going into this game. I mean, it was everything you wanted in a state championship game, and Clay Chalkville won a very close game. Final score there was 31-28, and I mean, Saraland was just about to score to take the lead and just came up a little bit short.
A yard short, and you're right. Saraland's quarterback, he's a signee with Texas, not a signee, but a hard commit to Texas, Texas Longhorns. Ryan Williams, their great receiver, is, of course you're going to get into that, but is going to forego his last year of high school to go ahead and start playing somewhere. Of course, he's committed, and he says it's a hard commit to the University of Alabama, along with the guy on the other side, Jalen Mbakwe. That guy was unstoppable for Central Phoenix City. I mean, he simply couldn't be stopped, and he signed with the University of Alabama Crimson Tide. So, just some great players, and that was a great high school football game. I mean, they left it on the field, and at the end of the game, Saraland went, instead of going for the kick to tie the game, send it to overtime, they went for the win. Ran a quarterback draw, and I mean, he almost made it to the 1 yard line, but he got stopped, and Central Phoenix City won the state championship. They're third.
Yeah, and I understand, and I haven't seen a lot of the commentary.
Clay Chalkville. I'm sorry, yeah. Clay Chalkville. Not yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of the commentary, but I do understand that some folks for Saraland were a little upset with Coach Kelly at Saraland for not kicking the extra point and trying to tie the game up. I understand what he was doing, but I just got to say this. I normally don't second guess a coach, but really at that particular time, I don't understand why you don't kick and tie the ball game up. I mean, you got You got some offensive players that are really good players. You can't tell me that you can't dial up something in a situation in overtime from, you're going to have the ball on the 10-yard line with 4 downs to score. And with the weapons you've got, I would find it hard living with myself for 365 days to get in that situation again to decide what I was going to do, when all I basically had to do was put the ball down and kick it through the uprights. Now, whether or not he had whether he had that much confidence in his kicker or not. I don't know. You and I
Well,
had seen them play.
missed one. Yeah, his kicker had missed one earlier in the game, an extra point, I think. No, he missed a field goal earlier in the game that wasn't much more than an extra point, and he missed it. And this one was from the left hash and would have been a severe angle. But now, you know what? He's the coach. I probably wouldn't have done it, but I mean, I can see why he did what he did, and especially with their explosive offense. But there's no reason to, and I think how each fan base just has, maybe some fan bases have a little larger percentage than others, I'll bet. But so you got that 10 to 20% that just, they're loud and proud, you know what I mean? And that's who kind of bleeds through sometimes. And I know most of the people in Saraland, they realize what a good year they had. And Clay Chalkville had a good year too. We said all along, we thought Hillcrest Tuscaloosa would be the toughest game they played during the playoffs until they probably would play Clay Chalkville, because we could see Clay Chalkville up in North Alabama doing the same thing that Saraland was doing in South Alabama. And that's a blur to everybody. And so,
one thing that we did talk about is about the sixth game of the year down there when Clay Chalkville played 6A. Clay Chalkville played 7A Thompson and actually beat them.
Right.
Then you knew that Clay Chalkville had a good football team.
Right, and a lot of people, including you and I. Now, I'm not going to say that Clay Chalkville or Saraland is better than Central Phoenix City or Thompson, but we know Clay Chalkville beat Thompson, and Thompson lost by 1 point to Central Phoenix City. So those four teams are probably your four best teams in the state, and it could very well be that Clay Chalkville is just the best team in the state, period. Regardless of classification. So. There's not a lot of difference between some of those 6A schools and those 7A schools.
Yeah, well, they were 14-0 on the year in Class 6A, and they beat a team that we really thought was going to bring home a state championship in Saraland. And getting into the whole thing, about some of the fans over in the Saraland area kind of getting on Coach Kelly. All right, so here's the thing. You kind of made mention of it, and I'll kind of stretch it on out there. It's kind of like dealing with employees. A lot of times, usually it's 20% of your employees give you 80% of your problems, and it's the same thing when you're dealing with fans too. You've got that little fringe that of course they've always known more than everybody else, so they're the ones that are going to chirp the loudest, especially when you're down, when you lose. They get louder if you lose than they actually cheer for you on the nights that you win, usually. And
so that's right. That's called the Pareto principle. A great statistician can know that 20% of what you're looking at causes 80% of the effect. And most of the people from Carolina are very supportive of Coach Jeff Kelly, and I think that. Like I said, I probably would have tried to the field goal myself. That's just me. But I can see why he did what he did. Yeah.
Well, he definitely, I thought it was the right call when it first opened up. Yeah, you can't say that the defense of Clay Chalkville just didn't make a superior play in stopping that quarterback draw the way it was stopped. I mean, they did a great job on defense, and they made the stop when it had to be made to win the ball game. Right. So you got to tip your hat to them. So the final score there, Clay Chalkville 31, Saraland 28. Saraland will be good again next year. They're still loaded, so they're going to be a lot of fun to watch. As a matter of fact, the quarterback's only a junior. I mean, he'll be back again. Yeah. So and they'll just reload with more talent. They probably got plenty of talent standing on the sidelines waiting their turn to get in there so that they can be the big dog on campus. They can be the big name. So as we continue looking, the final game that we've got to really take a look at now is going to be, of course, the Class 7A game, which was a very good game within itself. Central Phoenix City, as we said, they defeated Thompson. I really expected Thompson to win, but I had heard a lot about Central Phoenix City. And, of course, this was a game that if you watched it on TV, Bo Nix, his father is Patrick Nix, who used to play quarterback for the Auburn Tigers. Bo Nix was there in attendance at the ball game. Of course, he went up to New York for the Heisman presentation the other night. Didn't win it, but he was on the stage, which is a big accomplishment from a kid who played high school football in the state of Alabama to be there representing his school, the Oregon Ducks, there in New York, as an opportunity to possibly win the Heisman. And of course, he'll end up going on and playing in the NFL. But Coach Patrick Nix and his team from Central Phoenix City, they end up their season 13-0. They beat a very good Thompson team by a score of 21-19, and that was a good ball game to watch, and it was a lot of fun. Really good football, and I tell you, Central Phoenix City, they were as advertised, 13-0 on the year, and your 7A state champion in the Alabama High School Athletic Association. Really good football team.
Oh, it was. I watched the game. It was a great game. Could have gone either way. They went back forward. A lot of defense in it. A lot of future college football players in this game too. The Coleman kid from Central Phoenix, the receiver.
The big kid going to Auburn.
Going to Auburn. That kid's ridiculously good and fast, and of course, and then Thompson's got the ninth grade quarterback that was so good. It was
somebody that wears crimson. Somebody that wears crimson needs to flip the big wide receiver. I tell you, because that touchdown he ran on that bubble screen, where he just ran by people, and I'm going, wait a minute, there's no way that something that large is moving that fast. But he was, and he's much of a man.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. It was a good game, and congratulations to Central Phoenix City. I mean, they had just a fantastic year. Mostly rode their defense because when you look back at their season, they the most points they scored. It wasn't that much. I mean, they relied primarily on a great defense. Of course, a lot of times they got a good coach. He would kind of, pull back on the throttle sometimes when they were way ahead. But Cam Coleman's just fantastic football player, and it was a really good game. Statistically, it was a pretty close game, because they're both very good football teams.
Yeah, I mean, Thompson will be back. Of course, they're just loaded for bear up there, and they win year in and year out. They're always one of the teams that's mentioned as being, one of the best in the state. And of course, they live in that classification, in that 7A classification, where it's all your larger schools, and there's fewer of those. But boy, when you go watch them and Hoover and Central Phoenix City and the big schools, Mary G. Montgomery was part of that, over in Mobile, and all those big 7As and stuff. I mean, when you go see, these are high school football teams that'll dress 100 kids. I remember one year going up to one of the Super Sevens, and I believe it was in Tuscaloosa, and Hoover was there, and that was when Hoover was really in their heyday. And I remembered, I counted the number of kids. I was sitting there with my son Cooper, and we were counting, had a program, and we were counting, and Hoover dressed 135. I'm going,
crazy.
But there again, that's something that we kind of alluded to earlier. These schools that win, your cream of the crop. I mean, we've talked about that even at Neal and T.R. Miller and schools that are right here, right around us. All these schools that win have a high rate of participation amongst the male student athletes on the football program. I mean, that's like at Neal being a 3A. Neal dressed at about 65 kids, and so you have a lot. If you do the math in your 9th through the 12th grade, and you really can't even count the 9th grade, because the 9th grade typically they play junior high football. You got to count 10th, 11th, and 12th, and when you've got about 12, 12, 13, 15 kids per class that are out playing football. I mean, that's a majority of your kids in those classes, and you got to get them out and got to get them participating. And when you do, you've got more to choose from. You've got your athletic kids out there on the field, and those are the schools that are really successful.
That's exactly right, Ricky.
But anyway, well, that gets us through that, and so high school football's behind us. There's going to be we're going to get into the Christmas break here soon, and then of course when we come out of Christmas break, I think about January the 8th is the opening day for beginning to throw for baseball and for girls softball. Of course, we've got basketball going on around at the different schools now. Get out and support your favorite schools' basketball teams, as they will be in full speed, especially once they get back from the Christmas holidays. They started late October, moving into November, and now they're going to have the Christmas break. Of course, when they come back, they'll be getting into more and more region games, and they'll be deciding region championships, and people will be going to area tournaments, and all this stuff will be going on. So it'll be an exciting time. And then, of course, the spring sports come around, and then the next thing you know, toward the further into the end of the school year, when we get over there around April and May, you get all these spring football games, and then the next thing you know, we're about to tee that rascal up again and get started again. And boy, I can't wait. We're so excited to be a part of high school football here in our area. So glad to be able to bring this podcast to you, and we enjoy it, and we just have an opportunity to put it out there. We're going to delve into a little recruiting news and stuff like that. Rick and I have already discussed that, so we're going to talk about some kids that have opportunities to go play next level football from some of these high schools right around us, and there's a bunch of them, and there's so many opportunities for kids to go play now, so many more than there were some years back, as you've got schools here right around us in the state of Alabama. You've got South Alabama has a great football team now. You've got down in Pensacola, you've got the University of West Florida, the Argonauts. They've already won a national championship, with their football team. You've got the junior colleges over in Mississippi, where they have football teams that kids can go play. You go up to Montgomery, you've got Huntington, you've got Faulkner University in Montgomery that has football. You've got the University of West Alabama over at Livingston. I mean, there's just a lot of football right around us that a lot of people don't even really pay that much attention to because they're smaller schools. But these are opportunities for kids to go play, and so we're going to kind of follow some of these kids, and we want to put it out there. We want to reward these kids that are going to play this next level football, and make a big deal out of it, because it's a big deal to them, and because it's a big deal to them, it should be a big deal to us. You know what I mean? And so that's what we want to do. And I'll tell you one thing that Rick and I are really excited about too is not only that, now that football's over with, it gives us an opportunity to kind of move into another realm of stuff that we like to do, and we're gonna try to go hook something in the lips here for much longer. We're gonna find a place to fish before long, and we're gonna pass that information along to you as well as we get out and kind of get on the waterways all around us here in Southwest Alabama and in Northwest Florida, and try to fish a little bit. And we're going to talk about that on our podcast, and we want you to be a part of it as well.
That's right. A lot of good fishing. A lot of people don't realize that late November, December, January, there really ain't any bad months to go fishing. Like my dad, Captain Wayne, just tell all of us, the only sure way not to catch a fish is to not go. And there's good fishing in December. And shore fishing, you got lots of good. You mentioned earlier about you and I possibly going to try and catch a speckled trout and some redfish, and you also got sheep's head. I mean, the colder months are typically, especially once you get into February and March, for the sheep's head fishing, just bridge pilings and bulkheads and things like that with live shrimp or fiddler crabs on the inshore part. Of course, offshore, it's all about the weather. If you want to try to get offshore, you got to get kind of a weather window for that, unless you've got a very large yatchet, as Jerry I would say, a yacht or something. But inshore fishing, crappie fishing is good. Just have to fish a little deeper for them this time of year. Get down around 8 or 9 feet, find you some structure, and throw you a little marker buoy out and fish for them. So lots of good fishing to go in. Like I said, we're trying to plan to do one of our podcasts from one of our fishing locations. So maybe get into some tips on how to be successful, or maybe even more successful than we are.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll go ahead and say that. You're a much better fisherman than I am. I go with you just so that so that I can go and enjoy. I enjoy watching you catch them. So because you're a lot better at it than I am. Now, one thing that I will say that I do enjoy, and I hope we get an opportunity to do, is if for nothing else, just to go down and spend some time on the sand. Is I love it when we get a chance to go and try to catch an occasional pompano, even though they're very tough to catch. I like to try to surf fish a little bit right there around Turquoise Place and all in Gulf Shores, and like to go over there and maybe do a little surf fishing for those pompano, man. It's a lot of fun, and if nothing else, I mean, who can turn down a trip to the beach? I mean, even if you don't catch a fish, it's a good day. You know what I mean?
That's why I like the pompano fishing, surf fishing, because you're just kind of sitting there relaxing, and of course, the pompano and some of the other surf fish just kind of run up and down the beach, so you can just kind of sit there and relax and take it easy while you're waiting for your rods to go off.
Well, I know one of the funnest times I ever had is I've only caught one pompano that I've remember catching when I went with you over there, but one of the funnest times I've ever had was that day that I hooked the big old stingray, and he liked to drug me slam to Pensacola as I was trying to. I wasn't sure whether I was pulling him in or he was pulling me out. But one of the two things was happening. We was having fun while we were doing it, and a lot of the fun is when you're out there fishing like that, and there's people on the Gulf of Mexico, especially people that aren't used to being around the Gulf and all. You always meet new people because they come up and watch and see what you're doing, and they're interested in what you're doing, and so fishing then becomes a spectator sport. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's right. I'm looking forward to it too.
I am too. Well, look, that's going to do it for us tonight. We've made it through a football season, and we're trying to get into something else, and hopefully fishing season will be next. We'll do a podcast next week. We'll just have to figure out what it's going to be about. Might be a little bit of fishing, might be something else. You don't ever know, but the way you find out is to tune in. So find us. We're available wherever you get your podcasts, and we call it the SportzMoose Media Podcast, and it's available wherever you want to listen, whether it be Spotify or Amazon Music or just a whole, I'm going to use the word, Rick, a whole plethora of places we're available for you to pick up a podcast. So tune in, listen to us, and until next high school football season, y'all strap it up tight, okay? And watch out for those blindside blocks.
There you go.